Hello, my name is HQ of HQ Reacts. Welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, share the stream, and click the notification button for new content.
Hello all. This is HQ in the house. HQ in the house.
Really well. Stay online. Don't get offline and vote. Make sure you get through and vote. We're going to have a big victory.
There's no surprises. What happened last night was blue states and blue cities voted blue. We all saw that coming. And no one should read too much into last night's election results. Off-year elections are not indicative of what's to come. That's what history teaches us.
I hear the train a-comin'. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine.
Y'all are really missing how much of a blue wave occurred last night. I know everybody's talking and they're talking about the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and in Virginia, the mayoral race in New York, but what they're forgetting is two other very important to me bellwethers. Down there in Mississippi, they were able to flip Republican seats and break the supermajority in the most gerrymandered state in the nation. Do y'all know that Mississippi actually has the largest black population in the country, in a state? But the way that the districts are broken up, that the black people will actually never be able to get a significant core of power because they're so gerrymandered. Well, they flipped 2 seats. That's a big deal. Now they actually got to go listen to the people and do some negotiating down there. So that's going to be great. The other, and I got to talk to it because it's near and dear to my heart because y'all know I'm a Philly gal. Well, yesterday in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, Bucks County is the touching county to Philadelphia that is its most northeastern part. And it is a very purple and unpredictable area. Okay. The pendulum swings hard and fast. And you kind of can know what's going on based on what's going on out there. Well, they had taken a very hard line view on LGBTQIA rights. And the first place it showed up out there was in the school board. But then we saw it in the commissioner races. We saw it damn near down to the dog catcher races where they had switched because they didn't want these people touching, teaching their kids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, this election occurred. And guess what? There is not one Republican-held seat on the Bucks County School Board. Not a single one. There is no Republican representation on the Bucks County School Board. That is beyond significant because people, the first place that you really see change is locally. And so the fact that the local people are like, look, we worried about feeding kids in school now. We worried about gun violence in school now. We ain't really all that worried about whether or not some LGBTQIA person has contact with my kids, because that was how it was. We can't have them talking to our kids. We can't have them indoctrinating our kids. Well, now they done said we don't really care about indoctrination. We really care about feeding our kids, educating our kids, and having our kids be safe. Sound progressive to me. Add that to over in Chester County. Another one of those purple counties. That one is to the most western part of Philadelphia, and it is a very wealthy county. And guess what? They just elected a transgender mayor. I'm trying to tell you, Pennsylvania is looking less like Pennsylvania these days. And for those of you who don't know and say, oh, it was definitely a blue wave because they held on to the state Supreme Court, and so that Philly turned out. No. First of all, these are counties. They don't have anything to do with Philly. But Philadelphia only saw a 12% voter turnout yesterday. Only 12%. Usually when we see real impact in statewide races, it's because Philadelphia and Pittsburgh really showed out and killed the numbers in Kentucky that sits in between them. This did not happen this time. Instead, these little red counties, these little red places that we never know what they're going to do. We always know what they're going to do, and that's vote red. Yeah, they changing. They changing their minds. The tide really is at its height right now on this blue wave. We got to ride it.
MAGA Mike Johnson and so many others are completely foolish. They're going out of their way to say that what you saw last night with the blue wave that Democrats got was nothing. It meant nothing. It is completely worthless. They're going out of their way to try to cover up because that's all they know how to do. They don't. Mike Johnson says, we have everything going perfectly. We don't have to change anything. There's no need to go back to the drawing board because the American people know that we've got their backs. Really? Why did we get the blue wave then last night? Why? Why, MAGA Mike? It's simple. Because the American people don't trust you. You see, you have this idea inside your head that just because your cult base continues to cheer you on, that means that the rest of America is happy with you, when in reality, I think a lot of you know that people are upset with you, and yet, really, you don't do anything because you're freaking scared of Donald Trump, when you really shouldn't be. It's Donald Trump. Okay? If he does something that's wrong, maybe you should think about suing him. Wow. Who would have thought that you can actually try to do things the legal, lawful
through the country, almost like a cleaning. Trump lost everything, a clean sweep for Democrats, and Republicans had better be careful, because if they don't accept and acknowledge and appreciate the significance of what happened last night, they risk getting decimated in 2026. Now, we're going to look at all of it, but why don't we start with the results so we can all get on the same page about exactly what happened?
Like sugar on my tongue, tongue, tongue. Your body so sweet, sweet, sweet. Like sugar on my tongue, tongue, tongue. Your body so sweet, sweet, sweet.
Oh, here we go again. You guys saw Zoran Mandami win last night in New York City and immediately started screaming, he's a communist. He's bringing Sharia law. Like what? Where do you even get this bullshit? Aisle 4 conspiracy, Mark? All right, gather around, class. Let's clear up the basics, since Google clearly isn't getting enough love from you. Socialism. That's when the government helps people with things like healthcare, education, and not starving to death. You know, all the stuff you're totally okay with, you're totally fine with, until someone calls it socialism. Communism, though, that's when the government owns everything. Your house, your paycheck, your grandmama's banana bread recipe, all of it. Totally different thing. So when you call Mandami a communist because he wants free bus rides and rent freezes, you're just announcing to the world that you don't know the difference between sharing and full-blown government control. That sucks for you. And the Sharia law thing? Come on, that's Islamic religious law. It's not suddenly taking over New York City because one Muslim guy got elected. Chill the fuck out. Also, can we talk about how every Democrat and their cousin won last night? Mamdani took New York City. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger kept her seat. In New Jersey, the Dems held the governorship. And J.D. Vance's brother, bless his heart, couldn't even snag a red seat in a red state. Not one Republican foot. Zero, zilch, nothing. So before you hop back on Facebook to yell about communism, maybe just crack open a dictionary or at least Wikipedia. Anyway, before I go, where are those pesky e-files, by the way? We haven't forgotten. I'm just going to keep enjoying this beautiful blue wave breakdown. 2025 edition. It looks really good on y'all.
So it's happened. Republican and Trump's worst nightmare has come true. New York City has elected their first socialist mayor in a landslide. It's actually quite possible that America is waking up. And when I say America, I'm saying level-headed, decent, normal Americans. You know, liberals. It happened. And to make it even worse for Republicans, it's looking like there was actual blue fucking wave this election day. Check out what's going on in the rest of the country. And if their day wasn't bad enough, this was announced today. Bad news for Republicans doesn't stop there, because in poll after poll after poll, most Americans blame the GOP and Republicans for the shutdown, despite all the nonsense and lies that Trump, Mike Johnson, and all the Republicans have been spewing. It's a bad day to be a red hat cousin fucking piece of shit in this country today. Go find your MAGA neighbor, MAGA family members, and give them a hug. They're gonna need it.
Hey, Curtis, you're a fucking scumbag like I said all along, all of these months. You fucking got 8% of the vote. You split the fucking vote for the $7 fucking million. You were a scumbag. I hope every New Yorker spits in your fucking face every single day. You fucking sold out like fucking Judas sold out fucking Jesus for the 30 fucking coins and silver. Go fuck yourself.
Some super disturbing and upsetting breaking news, which is that Donald Trump just announced on Truth Social that he is not going to release the SNAP payments. He is going to defy a court order to release that funding so that children, the elderly, people with disabilities, people who are struggling can eat, all to punish Democrats because he doesn't want to help pay for working Americans' health care. That is disgusting. Here's the Truth Social post. You can read it yourself. He says that SNAP will only be given when the radical left Democrats open up the government. Nothing about the fact that House Republicans have been refusing to come to D.C. for 6 weeks now. No, just thank you for your attention to this matter as I starve children in America. Guys, your kid's hunger is a joke to him. It's a game to him. It's not real. Other people's needs are not real. The fact that people actually don't have enough money to eat is not real to him. So y'all, you got to spread the word to people who were counting on these payments and tell them that they're not going to come because Donald Trump is defying a court order, because he wants to punish Democrats, because they're fighting for affordable health care. And after you tell them that, tell them to go vote in any election they have today. Show Republicans how you feel about this. You feel disgusted? Then vote. And after you do that, please go give some money or some volunteer time to your local food bank, because we are going to need to save each other in this situation. Unbelievable. Never forget this and never forget
Here's
it.
some tea for you. MTG, people are like, oh my God, she's saying all of these things. Like, what's gotten into her lately? Oh, like she's bucking against Trump. She's bucking against the administration. Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to run for Senate in Georgia. She wanted to run for Senate earlier this year in the state of Georgia. She wanted to be the Republican nominee for Senate. So she was gearing up for that statewide race, and Trump told her no. Trump said no. And the White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate. And she has been on a revenge tour ever since.
Hello, y'all. Hello, the day after the election. Hello. And we are not out in the streets. I am not on camera today. I am terrible. I feel terrible. I got tissue up my nose, all that good stuff. Why? Because I have the flu. So I'm not on camera, but I am here with you in spirit. We are not in those streets. And you all saw the thumbnail. You saw the thumbnail, right? It's the Insurrection Act, or the Posse Comitatus Act. And we all kind of know the Insurrection Act goes hand in hand with the Posse Comitatus Act, right? It's a federal law that allows a president to deploy the U.S. military forces within the country to restore order. Why do you think us black folks have not been outside protesting with the No Kings protest? We haven't been out there. We're not going to go out there. We're not trying to go out there because we got the memo. We got the memo. We understand that the president is waiting for black people to come out into the streets so that he can call for the Insurrection Act. We understand that, and we got the memo. Why do you think we're not showing up at all of these? Why is it that you think we aren't showing up for all of these protests? People saying, where are all the black people? Why aren't the black people out in the streets? Why aren't the black people doing X, Y, and Z? It's because we know that if we come out into the streets, then he will call for the Insurrection Act. Okay? So we're giving brown and white people cover so that you won't get the military called on you, and it won't be a distraction from what needs to be done. We all got the memo. Every black person that understands, we all got the memo that we knew we could not show up in droves in a whole big crap load of black people. We knew that. As soon as we figured out he was deploying the military, we said, oh no, they're going to deploy the military for us. We can't allow him to distract from the cause of what's going on. Okay. So the Insurrection Act, active duty troops or the National Guard, turn them in and say, but see, here's the thing. He also for good measure, he's also already deployed 500 active duty troops to each state for the ready, just in case there is something, just in case he feels like doing it. That's why we're not giving him any reason for him to call the militia, active duty troops, in the National Guard. We're not giving him, black people are not giving him any reason to call and have him invoke that particular act. One, you have to have civil unrest, rebellion, or insurrection against the government. State authorities can't or won't control the situation, and federal laws or civilian rights are being obstructed, and local law enforcement can't protect them. So simple. We show up, somebody gets rowdy, they see us dancing, acting up, doing whatever we do, and then the National Guards are called. Okay? And we know this. We got the memo. That's why we haven't shown up. It's been used several times in U.S. history. In Little Rock, because the kids wanted to go to school. In Detroit, when President Johnson deployed the troops to restore order on the streets in Detroit. In 1992, when Rodney King was beat by those policemen. And it was LA riots. Okay? Those were the 3 times in which the Insurrection Act had been invoked. We, as black people, are not going to allow this president to call those troops on us. That's why we know they are there for the ready to call in when the president feels like at his whim that he's going to call. And we're going to allow him to call them on the brown and the white people. But us black people know if we get called, they get called on us, we're going to leave with body bags. Okay? The act is controversial. It gives broad power to the president, even against a governor's wishes. It could be misused, and it's being misused by this president. Nobody has ever had to call in the military before. And since Donald Trump has been lying about him needing to use the military or to use the militia, he's been lying about that because he's waiting for us to come into the streets, us black people to come into the streets, and he's going to call the militia. Brown people as well. Okay? I'm not asking for permission for you to believe it. We already know it. If you're not black or brown, then you would know. Okay? So this Insurrection Act was first passed in 1807, right? During Thomas Jefferson's presidency, right? It was developed so that the president had authority use the U.S. military to suppress rebellions and insurrections within the United States. 1870, the act has been amended a couple times. We had the Civil War, the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. That let the president act against troop groups that violated citizens' constitutional rights when state authorities refused to intervene. So that was another reason why he had pulled the Insurrection Act out of their back pocket. Okay? The act is now found in the Title 10 of the U.S. Code, Section 251 to 255. So it's really the president's discretion. Okay? It's really the president's discretion as to whether he can use such a thing or not. Okay? The Insurrection Act is over 200 years old, but it remains legal. So this is what the president is trying to do. Like I said, President Thomas Jefferson used it first. and we've had to use it several times over the course of the growth of this country. So Los Angeles, like I said, Detroit, Mississippi, we've had to use it every once in a while, but we have not had to use it in modern times, right? President Donald Trump considered using this Insurrection Act in 2020 when we had the BLM riots over the George Floyd, the protests over the George Floyd death. And some cities were experiencing riots, looting, and violence. And apparently somebody got him up to speed as to what he could do. And he decided at some point, we're going to use the Insurrection Act come 2024, 2025 and beyond, because we're not going to have the BLM again. We're not going to have the January 6th insurrection, which it should have been called at that particular time, but apparently Donald Trump was too dumb to figure that out. So he never really had anybody to tell him, okay, that he could have used used it back then. So he never used it on the January 6th people, right? But he could have deployed those active duty military troops into American cities into the insurrection of January 6th. He could have did all that to restore law and order, but he probably didn't know anything about it. He probably didn't even have any. Well, Donald Trump, you know, he's ain't smart as a fifth grader, so he can't figure this shit out on his own. It's controversial because the military isn't meant to police its citizens. That's what the local and state law enforcement is for, right? Now, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, it forbids the U.S. military from domestic law enforcement. The Insurrection Act is one of its only exceptions. That's the only exception is the Insurrection Act, okay? Nobody wants the military to be policed or politicized. See, we do not want to give Donald Trump any reason whatsoever to turn the military against black and brown people. Okay? We don't want to give him any idea. So I'm saying, black people, remember, he's waiting. Donald Trump and his ilk are waiting for black people to get into the street, and then he's going to call in the guards, and it's going to be the Insurrection Act. That's going to be his excuse. And then we're going to lose some people over it. So I say, stay out of the streets and let brown and white people do what needs to be done, and we give the cover. Okay? Because we know he's going to use it as a frame for law and order. Okay? Some of the protesters might turn violent. Local Democratic officers might be too lenient. He wanted to project strength and control. And I think he decided, or he tried to do it, or he did it in California when there were protests, when the ICE started doing the things that they were doing, or they were having a protest in LA. I think that was the issue with it. He wasn't sure. He wasn't exactly sure whether he could or not. They were going back and forth, back and forth. And Gavin Newsom was like, don't do that, X, Y, and Z. So he was just waiting. He was just waiting for other black people to come out there. Trump has never officially invoked the Insurrection Act, but he's threatened to do it several times. Several times in Washington, D.C., Portland, X, Y, and Z. But he hasn't done that as of yet. Okay? He threatened to use it, but he hasn't. Okay? And the George Floyd protest would have been the first time. He's never signed the official proclamation. He's come on TV and he said that he would legally invoke the act, but he's never done that. He's also always used federal law enforcement like Homeland Security, FBI, ICE, X, Y, and Z, right? Talked about it Has he has the authority to do it? Yes. Has he actually done it? No. And George W. Bush has been the last person to do it. So, what if he wanted to do it? If he decides that he's going to do the Insurrection Act, that means he's going to use the most extreme emergency powers available for this president in a president's arsenal. He could deploy active U.S. military troops. He could federalize the National Guard. I think he did that. Even against the state's wishes, he could. Just to suppress what he considers an insurrection, rebellion, or widespread domestic violence. He can enforce that even if he believes the state is unwilling. As long as he thinks a state is unwilling or unable to do it, he could do it. But the first thing he has to do in order for it to occur, he would have to issue a public proclamation. Order the people to disperse, to go home, to get out the street. He would have to tell people to do that first. If that order was not obeyed, he can invoke the Insurrection Act. But he has to make the proclamation first. He has to make that proclamation first, giving him authority to send in the troops if they do not listen. And they could operate in domestic areas performing law enforcement duties such as crowd control, arrest, and guarding infrastructure. And it would override the state authority, of course, meaning a government's objection wouldn't necessarily stop it. So he hasn't done it yet. It's controversial. Why? Because it sparks legal and political backlash if he was to do that. It would blur the lines between civilian law enforcement and military power. Something we have tried to distinguish between since the beginning of time, since the beginning of the Insurrection Act. And really what is being seen as a political tool. Okay. People are looking at it like he just wants to do that so he can get people out into the street. Okay. Out into the street. Okay. And it would likely face a whole bunch of lawsuits if he was to do this. If he was to do what he wanted to do. If he wanted to do that. But here's my thing. It has to be some kind of checks and balances with this president. We just can't allow the president to do what the president wants to do, even though he may want to do it against his regular people. And people are like, well, I don't want him to do it. I don't want him to do it against a regular human being. I'm telling you, he's waiting. He's waiting for us brown people to get into the street. He's waiting for us to do just that. And we cannot allow this president to get us pulled into the middle of his foolery. So black people stay home when it comes to things like this. Hold on.
You catch Trump's claims about past U.S. presidents using the Insurrection Act? Yeah, in the course of telling at least 18 lies during his interview on 60 Minutes, one of them was this.
I want to use the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act has been used routinely by presidents, and if I needed it, that would mean I could bring in the Army, the Marines, I could...
Hold
up.
Trump also said in video that was not released by CBS that, quote, almost 50% of presidents have used the Insurrection Act. And that, quote, some of the presidents, recent ones, have used it 28 times. Okay, where do we begin? Let's start with a quick 101 about what the Insurrection Act is. The Insurrection Act is a law that empowers the president to deploy the military and National Guard soldiers to suppress an insurrection in the United States. Their duties can include law enforcement actions like conducting searches and making arrests that are ordinarily prohibited. Now let's turn to those statistics that Trump trotted out. Number one, almost 50% of U.S. presidents have not invoked the Insurrection Act. 17 of 45 presidents, or 38%, have invoked the law. Number two, recent presidents have not invoked the Insurrection Act 28 times. In all of American history, it's been invoked 30 times. And the last time was 33 years ago, in 1992, when George H.W. Bush invoked it during the 1992 Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. And fun fact, he did so at the request of the California governor. The president who invoked the Insurrection Act the most times was Ulysses Grant, who did so on 6 occasions in the 1870s to suppress white supremacist insurrections in the post-Civil War South. Trump is lying about the Insurrection Act being invoked routinely as part of a 3-part strategy to justify his plan to invoke it sometime in the future in cities run by Democrats. Part 1 of the strategy was about optics, sending troops into Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. and elsewhere to accustom the American people to seeing the military patrolling American cities, to normalize it. Part 2 is about history, where Trump incessantly cites fake history to convince the American public that past presidents invoke the Insurrection Act all the time. Therefore, it won't be a big deal when he does. And part 3, of course, is to declare an insurrection where none exists. He's already, on multiple occasions, referred to peaceful protesters as insurrectionists. The question is not if Trump will invoke the Insurrection Act, it's when. Given all his talk about voter fraud and stolen elections, all fantasy of course, plus his desire to serve an unconstitutional 3rd term, and last night's Republican wipeout in nationwide elections, I'd put my money on it happening close to either the 2026 midterms, the 2028 general election, or both. Trump declaring an insurrection in several swing states would allow him to flood them with troops that could suppress voting by setting up military checkpoints near polling sites. Troops could seize ballots and voting machines and arrest election officials. It's bad, people, really bad. We are not on the verge of a constitutional crisis. We're in one, deep. Trump is not acting like an authoritarian. He is, by any definition, an authoritarian. Whether he succeeds in ending American democracy depends on what we, the vast majority of Americans who still believe in democracy, decide to do. Will you resist or will you comply?
Memo, and it's just been confirmed today as the truth. My name is Hunter Howell, and I would never harm myself. 5 days ago, I reported on an allegedly leaked memo that the National Guard was creating a quick response force to deploy rapidly into cities in case of sudden civil unrest. Turns out today, 5 days later, the Pentagon has reported on it and confirmed it as truth. That is what they were doing. I'm sorry that I didn't get the leaked memo out to you sooner. You can backtrack the time. Today is the 29th. I reported on the leaked memo on the 24th. They're preparing for something huge. My prediction, the Insurrection Act that they're going to try and invoke, the Insurrection Act of 1807, once people get desperate enough by not having access to food, which they're intentionally causing this problem by keeping the government shut down and cutting off 12% of the population, approximately 42 million Americans, from programs such as SNAP and WIC. And it is so sick that our government is trying to continuously pin us against our neighbor when they create all of these problems and then kick us while we're down. My name is Hunter Howell. I am sending you my love. That is the news story.
You to listen very carefully to me. Donald Trump is going to use Chicago as an example to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law. I'm being 100% serious in this assessment. Why do I say that? Look at what's happening in Chicago. We're having pastors maced by cosplaying masked commandos. People are angry, and he's going to use Chicago as a trial run for martial law. It is what it is. Now, what I don't think is going to happen, I don't think he's going to declare martial law nationwide, because as many people have pointed out, month after month on this app, it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to enforce nationally. We're just too big of a country for that to happen. What I think is the more likely scenario, and this is just my personal opinion and assessment, is that the administration is going to continue to target blue cities, send people into Chicago, Portland, LA, any other blue city he has mentioned, and have his folks, you know, the cosplay folks, cause trouble, get people angry. And then he's going to impose martial law there. And what people need to remember is that the majority of Americans...
If it was necessary. So far it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason.
President Trump has been asked a lot about the Insurrection Act. It's a federal law from 1807 that gives power to the president to deploy the U.S. military domestically and federalize National Guard.
We know why he's waiting. The president is waiting for us black people to hit the street. He has no reason to hold back. He's waiting for us to come down the street, and then he's going to do. He's waiting for us to come out in a large number. Once we come out in a large number, that's when he's going to invoke it. And because most people have implicit biases, they're going to naturally assume the violent left, Antifa, BLM, black folks are out there. Let me invoke the Insurrection Act, and that's when it's going to occur. Okay? He's not doing it until he sees enough black people in the city. That's why he was waiting for black people to come out to the No Kings protest. And we said, sit your ass down, black folks. This is what he's waiting for. I don't know what the people are doing in the city of Portland and Chicago. Y'all not doing no crime. Y'all ain't doing nothing. Cause y'all got the memo. Sit y'all's ass down. Don't start acting up when they hit the city. When they hit the city, y'all go back in the house. That's why you haven't heard him invoking the Insurrection Act. Because black folks are inside and he's just waiting for them to come out.
Troops during specific circumstances. Invoking the act effectively suspends what's called the Posse Comitatus Act, which prevents federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement activities. And it gives the president a lot of leeway. The act says that the president, by using the militia or the armed forces, or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy if it obstructs the execution of laws in the United States. And it's up to the president to determine what counts as an insurrection or rebellion. And that's especially important as President Trump's definition of insurrection is wide-ranging.
Portland's been on fire for years. We have to save something else because I think that's all insurrection. I really think that's really criminal insurrection. Los Angeles wouldn't even be there now if I didn't send in the troops very early. Because that was a riot. That was an insurrection. We got a bill passed that I said, let's see if we can get it all done. Because these Democrats are like insurrectionists, okay?
The act has been used
Now, when have we ever acted out as Democrats? When have we ever acted out? Why would you need to use those words? When did you need to use those words? See, this is what the Republicans do. They use certain words over and over and over again, and then you get the zombies to start believing it. Oh, those Democrats are insurrectionists. Those Democrats are going to start some stuff. So this is how he does it. This is how he indoctrinates the people to get used to seeing the military on the street. Because since we are so out of control, he has to call in the cops. This is the words he's using.
Several times by presidents, including in 1957, when Dwight Eisenhower brought the Arkansas National Guard under federal control after then-Governor Faubus fought desegregation in Little Rock. But it's come into focus today because of President Trump's escalated interest in federalizing National Guard troops from around the country and sending them into Democrat-run cities that he believes aren't effectively quelling protests.
Chicago is a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job.
It was a 35-day government shutdown during the first Trump administration. This is day 35 of the Trump Republican shutdown. Donald Trump and the Republicans cannot govern. These people are deeply unqualified. And they spent all of last year lying to the American people that they were going to lower the high cost of living, while at the same time distancing themselves from Project 2025. But they've spent all of this year doing nothing to lower the high cost of living. In fact, costs are going up, not down, while they spend all of their time, Republicans spend all of their time implementing the extreme, toxic Project 2025 agenda.
Well, they're waiting for people to start acting up because they don't have food stamps. Because they're not getting food stamps, they want people to start stealing and looting and acting up. He's waiting for a sign for people to do X, Y, and Z. They're just waiting until they call in the troops. They're just waiting.
Including, by the way, as part of Project 2025, ripping away nutritional benefits and SNAP from the American people. I think that's on page 300 or so of Project 2025. Shutting down the federal government, agency by agency by agency, part of Project 2025. Gutting the health care of the American people, as Republicans have done all throughout this year, part of Project 2025. And so the dysfunction, the cruelty, the inability of Republicans to make life better for the American people is, of course, now on full display. And Republicans can't blame anyone other than themselves because they have complete control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Some major news this afternoon. The White House is becoming increasingly serious and is moving closer to invoking the Insurrection Act of 1807 on United States soil. Here's what that would mean. The Insurrection Act of 1807 gives Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the authority to allow military officials to conduct law enforcement activities against American citizens on U.S. soil. That means the United States military would be able to conduct arrests, conduct searches and seizures, etc. Anything that a police officer could do, military can do. That includes the National Guard. That includes Air Force or Army units or anyone that would be deployed on American soil. And according to NBC News this evening, White House officials are becoming increasingly serious about discussing how to invoke the Insurrection Act. Now, this will almost certainly bring legal challenges almost instantly, because to invoke the Insurrection Act, you have to have a colorable legal basis to do so. There has to be a rebellion, or it has to be done to quell civil unrest. And well, as federal judges across the country have already found, especially one in Portland, Judge Karen Immergood, Donald Trump's reality is untethered to the facts. That's a direct quote from her opinion, where she recently blocked the deployment of the Oregon National Guard to Portland, Oregon. And so we're at a situation right now where the White House is on the verge of essentially allowing the United States military to take over for the local police, becoming the police force of the President of the United States. And it happens as a couple things are shifting right now as it relates to this White House and to the National Guard. First, Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, who's really leading the charge in all of this, sparked online controversy after freezing mid-interview on CNN while citing Donald Trump's, quote, plenary authority to deploy the National Guard, prompting speculation that he actually stopped himself from revealing too much about the administration's expansive view of presidential power amid legal challenges to Trump's troop deployment and talk of invoking the Insurrection Act.
See, here's the thing. We have to remember that when Donald Trump makes these announcements or makes these comparisons to the insurrection, he's not talking to the rational, everyday person. He's talking to his base. He's talking to MAGA. And he's trying to convince them that what he's doing is okay. And in terms of that, they will understand and not question what he's doing. That's the whole thing. He knows he's trying to do it against the law. But we know as brown people, we know as black people what time it is. If you go out into the street, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get arrested or you're going to get unalived.
Government shutdown. By Saturday, there's going to be no more snap checks. We have riots in Portland and Chicago. It's chaos on the streets, and it's only a matter of time before martial law is declared. And do you know the first thing you should do if martial law is declared? Let me show you. Right here, exactly what to do when martial law is declared. How to keep your civil rights and liberties as others lose them. You're going to get a day-by-day breakdown of what to do and an 8-step preparation checklist. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Step 4, Step 5, Step 6, Step 7, and Step 8. This is a fantastic resource to have. It's going to prepare you, your family, and your friends for the next Great Depression. This is a book that I would rather have than not need, than need and not have. This is a Dollar Apocalypse, your survival guide for the next Great Depression. And with everything that's been happening around the US, they've been having a hard time keeping these in stock. So if you see an orange shopping cart somewhere down here, that means they are back in stock, but I would grab one while you still can.
Since we're one step closer to the Insurrection Act being called by Cheeto Supreme, I want to share with you a couple of things to prepare for an environment as such. It's not martial law, but the military will be in the streets. Allegedly, they'll be there to secure your rights. But those lines between martial law and the Insurrection Act are very blurry. So start by preparing your food. Have food for 2 to 4 weeks of perishables, water purification tablets, filters if you can. I'm not telling you to be a prepper. I'm telling you to be on the safe side. Why do I say water purification tablets and things of that nature? Is because the services could be interrupted because of disruptions, protests, etc., etc. Number two, make sure you have medical supplies. Have a first aid kit. Have your prescriptions if you can. Have Tylenol, Advil. Learn how to treat an injury. Those kind of things so you can be self-sufficient. And number three, cash. ATMs and banks may be closed due to protests, due to any kind of thing that is out there. So try to have cash in hand. Of course, that opens the door to have to protect yourself. Don't tell people that you have the cash. Don't tell people how much you have. Don't tell people where you have it. The best way to protect yourself is not always a weapon, but is secrecy. So do these things, but do not announce them to the world. Also, the more prepared you are to stay home when this happens, think about it mathematically. The more you run into military officers or military soldiers, the more you go through checkpoints, the higher the probability of you running into a problem and finding yourself in a situation that you might regret. I'm Alex. This is my rant, and I'm out.
Breaking news. The Trump administration is seriously considering invoking the Insurrection Act to deploy federal troops into multiple U.S. cities. This is being discussed inside the White House right now. Sources close to the administration say the president believes local leaders have lost control, especially in places like Chicago, Portland, and Los Angeles, where looting, protests, and violent clashes.
Donald Trump is about to invoke the Insurrection Act. He just said this on national television, okay? The Insurrection Act has not been invoked since 1992 during the Rodney King riots when the city of Los Angeles needed help from the federal government because they lost control of the rioters. Okay, Trump has fabricated these so-called extremist situations in cities like Portland, Chicago, Los Angeles, Memphis, Baltimore, etc., for the purpose to leading to the path of declaring martial law. The Insurrection Act basically allows him to bypass any judge's decision that says he's exaggerating, he cannot put troops on the street. Judges are blocking him all over the country. You've probably seen this. Well, he can invoke the Insurrection Act, which allows him to bypass all of these judges' decisions. One man in the United States can invoke the Insurrection Act.
So Sloth, aka the military's boss, aka felon number US 4547, is out here having a temper tantrum again. A whole bitch fit because a judge blocked the relocation, federalization, and deployment of any National Guard troops to Oregon. And to note, ironically enough, said judge's home was burned down after her address was doxed. And here come the Republicans with their fabrications talking about this was accidental as opposed to an arson. When we know that as of late, anyone who disagrees with Wiggy and the maggots are threatened and, of course, doxed. So anyway, he's having a tantrum and he said that he is considering invoking the Insurrection Act to deploy military troops to these cities. Further saying, if I had to enact it, I'll do it if people were being killed and courts were holding us up or mayors and governors were holding us up. And I think I'm so disconcerted at the fact that there is literally zero accountability. Like, I don't think that there is going to be a time during this regime that doesn't have me in a state of just being vexed. For a president to start an insurrection means that he is using his authority and influence to trigger or promote a violent resistance against the United States government and its constitutional processes, which is an act that is fundamentally contradictory to his constitutional obligations. And to be very clear, at this point in the juncture, not one person gives a fuck about the United States Constitution in this country.
Or federalize National Guard troops on U.S. soil. We have breaking news. The Trump administration is seriously considering invoking the Insurrection Act to deploy federal troops into multiple U.S. cities. This is being discussed inside the White House right now. Sources close to the administration say the president believes local leaders have lost control, especially in places like Chicago, Portland, and Los Angeles, where looting, protests, and violent clashes have stretched law enforcement thin. The Insurrection Act, originally passed in 1807, gives the president legal authority to use active duty military or federalize National Guard troops on U.S. soil when civil unrest overwhelms state control. But this move is rare and very controversial. Several governors and mayors are already threatening lawsuits, saying it would be an unconstitutional power grab. Federal judges have tried to block Guard deployments before, but if Trump signs this order, the military could take control of the streets within hours. Legal scholars warn it could ignite the biggest constitutional showdown in decades, testing the limits of federal power versus state sovereignty. If the Insurrection Act is triggered, it means martial law level authority on U.S. soil, and that changes everything. Let me know your thoughts in the...
The stage is set for a showdown in Chicago. Trump just announced that the National Guard is moving into the city, but local leaders aren't on board. The governor says the deployment isn't authorized. The mayor says the city won't cooperate, and police are being told to ignore the Guard. Three chains of command: the president, the governor, the mayor, all colliding at once. That's where the Posse Comitatus Act comes in. Passed in 1878, it was designed to keep the U.S. military from acting like police force inside of our borders. The only way around it is if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, which gives troops policing powers overnight. But here's the danger. The Guard is built for combat, not community policing. If they're ordered in without local cooperation, the result isn't control, it's chaos. Police refusing to back them up, courts scrambling to catch up, and civilians stuck in the middle of a constitutional crisis. The worst case scenario? Armed confrontations between different branches of government, violence in the streets, and the collapse.
Oh, I'm sorry. If Trump is going to do this, and that was yesterday, so he's definitely planning to move in the direction of bringing the military into the cities. If he uses the Insurrection Act for legitimate reasons, because there's a violent uprising or coordinated attack against the government, it would be legal but still highly controversial. If he uses it just to silence dissent, because he's salty now. They lost a blue wave yesterday. They lost it to a blue wave yesterday. So they salty right off the bat. Okay. So if he's doing it to silence protests, his political opponents, or anything like that, it would trigger a constitutional crisis. Here's the thing. We don't have any pushback on the Republican side. The Republicans are not pushing back on anything that Donald Trump does. They're letting him do whatever he wants to do. They have no pushback for him. That's why they need to go, because they can't be trusted to do their jobs. That's the whole point of getting rid of the Republicans, because they can't be trusted to do their job. They would allow this thing to happen instead of challenging what this president is doing. Okay. He would trigger a constitutional crisis, of course, and public backlash like he would never have thought that he could do it. Okay. We thought it was against the law to use it against Americans. We did. Most people thought it would be, you couldn't do that. But it's a general rule. It is against the law under the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, of course. It's illegal for the U.S. military to act as a law enforcement inside the country. And the only exception is the Insurrection Act. So whoever has been behind President Trump, guiding him, pulling him through, doing the 2025 playbook, doing the things that he's doing, making the moves that he is doing, they knew about the Insurrection Act. So they came on board to let him know, hey, we doing the Insurrection Act. We doing that thing. We're going to do all of these things to get people in check, because the things that you are doing as the president, people are not going to like. But the one thing they did not plan on is us black people staying out of the street. Okay. They did not plan on that. So the only exception to the Posse Comitatus Act is the Insurrection Act of 1807. And since nobody has invoked it and nobody has went out into the street to do any kind of protest or rebellion or anything else, and no King's protest was very, very peaceful, he couldn't invoke it. Okay. And he can't use it so loosely because it would be so much. But then we can't trust the Republicans to push back because they have no pushback. They have no pushback. It's like they have abandoned their duty as a senator, as a House, as the other branches of government. They have been derelict in their duty. Okay. And the thing is, can we trust these people to put checks and balances on this president? Okay. Normally it's illegal. It's a rare exception that it's being used. Okay. But here's the thing. Many black people, many black Americans say, hey, if he invokes the Insurrection Act, it's going to target black communities. We know that. Okay, especially if it is some kind of protest, some kind of rally. It just is what it is. That's why he's targeting blue states, specifically high populations of black folk. Okay, high population of black folk. Okay, the act itself is not written to target any one race, but every major moment has been used. It has been used against black folks. Little Rock, when the people wanted to go to school. Civil rights. Kennedy and Johnson, to enforce desegregation. Los Angeles, when the Rodney King riots happened. It's always been used against black folk. Always. So it wouldn't be a big leap for it to occur against black folk here. Okay. It wouldn't be a big leap. And then now he's calling people insurrectionists. Watch the language that they use. Watch the language that they use. BLM, Antifa, insurrectionist, law and order, rhetoric. That's when they start using that rhetoric. When they start using that rhetoric, every person that gets on TV starts using the rhetoric. Insurrectionists, law and order, BLM, Antifa. When they start saying those things, that's when they're trying to pin stuff on. See, the Republicans are good at that. They're good at pinning names on people because you got goofies, you got zombies that believe them. The zombies believe whatever they say. So you say it long enough, you say it enough, and people start to believe it. And if the Insurrection Act was used in that way, it would criminalize constitutionally protected protest. That is what it will do and could do. Escalate the violence instead of calming it down. Okay? And it would be some kind of state-sanctioned oppression, sort of, against the black community, specifically if it's used in the black community. That's why civil rights lawyers said it was a direct threat to democracy and racial justice if it is used. It would not only be morally wrong, it would violate the spirit of the Constitution and civil rights legacy. So he doesn't want to do it, but he don't give a damn about black people. He never did. He doesn't care about the poor people, so he's going to use it anyway. We're a couple days away. We're a couple days away from him using it if people get out of order. If people start to get out of order. Okay? And that's why I'm saying black folks don't need to be outside. They don't need to be outside. People say, hey, figure out what you're going to do. Stay in the house. Don't go outside protesting. Okay? And this is what we're doing. And the black folks got the memo. We did not go out on No King's Day. It was a couple people out there, but not a lot. Okay? And these are the things that you have to watch out for. The announcement. Him announcing or threatening to invoke that Insurrection Act. Because he has to say that he's going to do it. That's the first thing he has to do, is say that he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. He has to say that first. He has to make the announcement. And he has to have clear justification for doing so. Telling people that the regular police force are unable to enforce the law. Legal experts say those conditions have to be met. He has to announce it. Federalizing the National Guard. He's already done that, I think. Putting armed and informed and uniformed and uninformed or ununiformed armed guards in neighborhoods. He's done that for crowd control. The only thing he has not done is said, I'm about to invoke the Insurrection Act. And he's days away from doing it. So this is what we're going to... My understanding is he has 500 troops for each state. He's putting 500 troops in place for each state. Okay. What we can do is we can set up watches, community watches in our neighborhood, just in case they start coming to our neighborhood near you. You have somebody that could be a lookout, can let everybody know this is what's going on. Okay. Make sure everybody got their ID. Make sure everybody has their important papers. Make sure everybody knows their rights when they do encounter some of these armed force people, because he's not above sending you to another whole country. If you protest who you are, he's not above doing that. Okay? He's not above doing that. And you have to figure out what's lawful and what's not lawful. Be ready. Make sure you know how to get somebody on the phone if something happens in your family. Prepare for an emergency action plan. What you're going to do, contacting legal help, contacting family, X, Y, and Z. Okay? Make sure somebody knows X, Y, and Z about you if something happens. Make sure you have a number at the ready, that you have memorized a number that you can call. Okay? Make sure people have escape routes. Make sure you know the escape routes within your neighborhood. How to get away quickly, how to do X, Y, and Z. Okay? And it's weird because this is something that can be done against black people, and we know it can be done against us. That's why we have been staying in the house. Okay? That's why we have been staying in the house. So I'm saying this is what we need to prepare for now. Because sooner or later, he's going to pull that trick out of his bag. And we cannot depend on the Republicans. We cannot depend on anybody in Washington, because the Republicans are the only thing that can stop him from doing some of these things. and they don't care, and they don't have any pushback. They've never had pushback for this president. They've let this president do whatever he wants to do. There's zombies just like everybody else that supports this president. They are zombies. They're too afraid of the president to do anything. Too afraid, or they don't care. 9 times out of 10, they're too afraid to do anything. They sit back in their office and say, this bitch ass president. They say things like that about him, but they're too afraid to do anything about it. Okay? They're too afraid to do anything about it. Okay? And that's the whole thing. The whole point is be prepared to do whatever needs to be done. Okay? No president or federal official can use the military for policing, searches, arrests, or surveillance under the Congress of the Constitution specifically, unless the Constitution specifically allows it. Okay? But it is what it is because it comes under the Posse Comitatus Act, and it comes under that specific instance under that Posse Act. That's the only way it can be done. Okay? That's the only way it can be done. So we worry about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Okay? They are getting in position January 1st. All of those troops for every state, 50 troops for every state, they're getting them into position so they will be available to move in January 1st. Okay? That's what he's trying to do. Move them in January 1st. So we will see something new and totally different. If we have to stay this course, we have to get rid of this president. If we can't get rid of this president, we have to get rid of all of his cronies and everybody around him who lets him do all his impulse, all the crazy impulses that he thinks that he can do. Okay? To let him do all of the impulses that he thinks he can do. Okay? And that's what we need to do. We need to watch and be prepared. Okay? Ready? At Ready 999, you're a zombie. We don't listen to zombies because you always come in here talking about stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We don't get upset in this chat. We don't get upset in this room. We deal with the facts that are on the ground. BLM, I ain't heard of them in years. Why would you even come over here and mention anything to do with BLM? Lord only knows why you thought it would be interesting to bring that up. But it is what it is. But as I stated to you all, we have to be ready for whatever comes down the pike because we don't know. This was an informational. Okay? This was your informational. The informational, so everybody would be up to speed as to what is going on, how it's going on, why we have people acting the way they have been acting, why we have people scared to go out into the street, because we don't know what this president is doing, what this president is going to do. Okay? And folks are saying, oh no, we are not going to get caught up in this whole rat race. We're not trying to get caught up in this whole rat race. We're not trying to get caught up with them putting us in jail. But here's the thing. Hold on. I'm going to play this. This is Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump. Let's listen to Donald Trump. We finna listen to him say what he got to say about this Insurrection Act. Hold on. Here we go. This is Donald Trump. Say it again, sir.
And I haven't used it.
Hold on. Let me move this. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
I haven't used it. But don't forget, I can use the Insurrection Act. 50% of the presidents almost have used that. And that's unquestioned power. I choose not to. I'd rather do this. But I'm met constantly by fake politicians that think that, it's not like a part of the radical left movement to have safety. These cities have to be safe.
You notice he had to pull that out of his ass. He wanted everybody to think.
We've made the mistake of turning tyranny into a history lesson. Fascism, authoritarianism, dictatorship, we've filed those words away in the past. We've made them hyperbole and wrapped them in grainy black and white photographs and dramatic classroom recitations. We've turned them into rhetorical warnings, shorthand for our fears rather than a description of our reality. And because of that, when the real thing arrived, we didn't recognize it. We expected jackboots on cobblestones and speeches from balconies, not golf carts on the White House lawn and press conferences staged like game shows. But here we are. And tyranny isn't just at the doorstep, it's inside with its feet on the desk. It's redecorated the Oval Office with gold-plated accents on everything, and the curtains have been changed to match the drapes at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump federalized the Washington, D.C. Metro Police and mobilized the National Guard. He invoked an emergency clause no president has ever used, and he says it's about public safety, obviously. He says the city is lawless and only he can fix it.
And this is what's scary right here. We have to deal with this president. So we have to act accordingly. Okay? We have to act accordingly. Because this president will not act like he has sense. He will not act like he has sense. So we have to act accordingly. Stay out of the street. Don't be a part of any kind of foolishness. Try to keep yourself away from any kind of chaos, ruckus. Say, let's go out and let's protest. Let's do X, Y, and Z. No. Where somebody ends up unalived, X, Y, and Z, we're not doing any of that. We're not doing any of that. We're not going to give them any kind of pushback. We're not going to give them any kind of ammunition to unalive any of our people. So I'm saying to you all, please take care of what's going on with you all and don't be out into the streets. I just wanted to give an FYI. I can't do too much talking, so I just want to come on here and say that. I appreciate y'all. Hopefully I feel better in the next couple days. I will try to come on as long as I can speak. As long as my voice lets me do that, I will come on here and still have content. But please, guys, hit the like button, hit the share button. Y'all, yeah, I'm bought and paid for Ready 99. See, you goofy. Don't make me go off on you, Ready 999. You one of them goofy zombies that don't want to hear the truth. You don't want to hear the truth. I don't recall me stating any of these facts. I recall all of these people on here saying something about this Insurrection Act. But if you ain't black, don't tell me what you think they gonna do against black folk. Because we don't need you to tell us nothing about what we know they will do to black folk that go out there in the street. If you're not a black person, then you don't know. But we all know what time it is as black folk. We know what time it is. We don't need you to know. Mind your business, and we gonna stay home and not get ourselves in no business. You just mind your business, okay? Walk around with that white privilege that you may or may not have. I will see you all tomorrow at some point. I don't know. I wake up around 11 if at all, if I'm sick or I'm well, but I will be back here. Y'all please hit the like and the share and the subscribe button, because we gonna walk a tightrope till we don't have to walk a tightrope anymore. I just wanted to bring that Insurrection Act because they're about to invoke it. That's all they need is a spark, and they're gonna put it on all our city. But I do know that last week they just put an order in for 500 troops per state, military troops per state, to be at the ready So when he calls for the insurrection, he wants us to get used to seeing military in the streets. That's what I do know. And they're putting them in place to do that to us. So I just wanted to inform my audience. I know what time it is. Everybody got to be ready because this is what's going on. Get your canned goods, get your stuff, stock yourself up. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. Love y'all. Like, share, subscribe, please, and thank you.